Now I'd like to transition a little bit and introduce our speaker for today. The speaker that we have today, I asked him to come because this is a person who has devoted his life to investing in young people. Many see him as a legendary football coach, as someone who had the opportunity to play for him. I see him as a person that took boys and to build character and develop men that were able to go back and contribute to the communities in which they lived in. And that's part of the reason why I've asked him to come and speak to this group today. Our speaker today is a legendary football coach, a former congressman for the 3rd District, former athletic director for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Tom Osborne.
Thanks, Walter, and appreciate all of you being here this morning. And I don't know if this is something you volunteered for or something you were just told you had to go to. So however you got here, we're glad you're here. And Walter has used the term investment a lot this morning. And I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about investment. There's a guy who lives up the road here in Omaha, and his name is Warren Buffett, and I don't know if any of you know anything about Warren or not, but he's a guy who has invested, and he's invested wisely. And so at this particular point in his life, he's probably worth about $50 billion, which is a lot of money. I believe he's the second wealthiest person in the world. And so he gave this advice one time when he was speaking down at the University of Nebraska to some of our business students. He said, the most important thing is to invest in yourself. Make yourself as valuable as you can. And so at this stage in your life, the most important thing you can do is to follow that advice and to invest in yourself. Make yourself more valuable to a prospective employee. And so I'll throw a few numbers at you and maybe think about these a little bit. And these are just averages. Some people exceed, some people don't quite hit those averages. But if you drop out of high school, and I doubt if there are very many here that will, but there might be a handful who are thinking about not finishing high school. If you drop out, your average salary will probably be around $20,000 a year. So if you make $20,000 a year, you will have to somehow pay for housing, you have to pay for rent, you probably want some kind of transportation, you probably want a car, probably won't be a very nice car, you'll have to buy groceries and some food. You probably will not be able to support a family, and you'll struggle to support yourself. There may be some times when you'll need food stamps. There'll be some times when you'll need some assistance. And so it'll be pretty much day to day, month to month, probably a pretty difficult existence. If you graduate from high school, on average, your income will be about $30,000 a year. It's about $10,000 a year more. And so it'll still be tight, but you probably will be able to support yourself. Might be a little difficult to support a family, probably would be very difficult too, but if you really budget wisely and if you really watch your dollars, you can maybe get by. And that's about going to be all you're going to be able to do, is just kind of balance the checkbook from week to week. If you go to a community college or trade school and get a 2-year degree, And if you're trained in a specific skill, it may be as a welder, it may be as an electrician, it may be nursing, it may be as a counselor, healthcare professional, cook, you name it. Your average income will be about $40,000 a year. So drop out 20, high school 30, community college, 2-year degree, associate degree 40. And if you go to a 4-year school, it's probably, and you graduate, it's about 50,000. So you have increments of about $10,000 a year. Now your lifetime working expectancy, probably for those of you in this room, will be somewhere approaching 50 years. You're now 17, 18, and probably by the time you retire, people living longer, they're having to work longer because retirement is probably not going to be at 60 or 65 anymore, probably going to be closer to 70. So over 50 years, that difference between a high school diploma, $30,000 a year, and an associate degree, community college, whatever, at 10,000 times 50 is $500,000, which is a lot of money. And what that means is probably you're going to be able to make ends meet. And there may be a little bit of discretionary money. There's not going to be a lot. But sometimes you hear this class warfare argument, well, the wealthy have it made, the wealthy have all kinds of advantages, and people who aren't wealthy are being taken advantage of. Well, the thing that has happened is if you have some discretionary wealth, in other words, if you're making more money than you're required to live on, to just make ends meet, you can invest a certain amount of money. And so let's say the difference between high school graduation, $30,000 a year, and community college, $40,000 a year. Out of that extra $10,000, maybe you're able to set $2,000 aside, and you invest it. And your employer matches that with another $2,000. That's $4,000 a year going into something called a 401k, a retirement account. You've probably heard of those. So 4,000 times 50 is what? $200,000, okay? So by the time you reach retirement, that's $200,000 that you set aside. But it's more than that, because there's this little thing called compounding. And maybe you've had some classes where you studied compounding. And so let's say that your 401k is invested in a retirement plan, and that generates 10% increase per year. Well, that 4,000 after 1 year is $4,040, and the next year is 8,000 and about 80 or 90, and as the years go by, that 200,000 will turn into more than $1 million. And so if you have $1 million waiting for you at retirement, you're probably in reasonably good shape. The difference between having that $1 million at retirement and having spent every dime you made simply to exist throughout your lifetime is huge. And so the thing that makes people generally wealthy is having discretionary dollars which they can invest over time. And if they do that, then they become so-called wealthy. And so what you're being offered in the way of a scholarship here is an opportunity, pretty much free of charge, to increase your income by about $10,000 a year, which may in turn provide you with some discretionary wealth, which can be invested, which if you're wise and if you're smart about it, will make for a huge difference in the way that you live, in the outcome in your life. You'll be able to support a family. You'll probably be able to help your children go through college. And you'll be able to do some things that you otherwise would not have been able to do. And so the thing that I'm concerned about, Walter told me, that a lot of you will be presented with this opportunity, but what you'll find is that an awful lot of people sitting in this room will not take advantage of the opportunity. You're being given this opportunity, free of charge, to have a 2-year education, which will probably increase your net earning power by $10,000 a year for the rest of your life, which nets around $500,000, and also discretionary wealth, or you can turn it down. And so I would assume that the wise thing for you to do would be to accept it and to decide that you're going to go ahead and get this education. So I think the advice that Warren Buffett is trying to give people is very wise, that the number one thing you should do is invest in yourself. And the more education you have, the more value you have. The more value you will bring to an employer, the more value you will bring to yourself. So anyway, that's the dollars and cents part of it. There's also this part. Usually people who have an education will have an unemployment rate of somewhere in the 3 to 4% range. Those who are dropouts are probably in the 10% range. Those who have a high school diploma, 7 to 8% unemployment. And so over that 50 years, if 10% of the time you don't have a job, that is really costly, and life really gets hard. So you're much more employable, and as Walter said, as time goes on, you'll find that most of the attractive jobs offered in this society have a basic requirement. There's a basic cutoff. And so they will say you have to have a certain level of education. And the more education you have, the more job opportunities you're going to have. And so the other thing I'd like to suggest to you is this. You want to build on your strengths. Most successful people are people who don't spend a lot of time worrying about their weaknesses. Sometimes you think, well, if I'm going to be successful and I don't do well in math, or if I don't do well in public speaking, or whatever it may be, then I have to work hard on those things that I don't do well so I can possibly be successful. Most successful people build on their strengths. So the question is, what do you like to do? What are you good at? What are you passionate about? And so if you have an interest and a skill in electronics, you certainly can do some things, particularly out at Milford, as part of this scholarship to become an electrician, or to do some things with electronics, or healthcare, or mechanics, or computers, or whatever it may be. So think about those things that you do well, things that you're interested in, and those are the things that you need to pursue a degree in. Those things will be important to you. And the last thing I'll mention to you that I think is really important, and again I'll quote Warren, and he's not the smartest guy in the world, but he's pretty smart. And he said, you know, in hiring we look for 3 things in people. He said we look for intelligence, we look for energy, people who will get up in the morning, go to work hard, and we look for character. And so the third thing is something I'd like to have you think about, and that's the issue of character. And so someone once said, that character is that which defines moral purpose. It's indicated by the class of things a person chooses or avoids. So if we knew a lot about you, if we knew what kind of books you read, what kind of books you avoid, what kind of television you watch, what kind of television you stay away from, what kind of people you hang out with, what kind of people you kind of avoid, we would begin to know something about your character. And so that's certainly important. And then somebody said this, a guy named Thomas McCauley, he said, character has to do with what you would do if you knew you would not be found out. Sometimes we behave ourselves because we're afraid of what will happen to us if we get caught. Well, let's say tonight you're walking down the street, there's a billfold laying on the sidewalk, you pick it up, and inside that billfold is a $100 bill. There's also a driver's license with a name and an address. And so you know who that billfold belongs to. and you look around and it's dark, there's nobody in the area, and nobody knows that you've found the billfold. And so what would you do at that point? You can get it back to the person who owned it, or you can throw the billfold in the bushes and put $100 in your pocket and walk away. So what you would do if you knew you were not going to be caught has a lot to do with your character. Or let's say that you have some type of a foolproof scheme to cheat on an exam in class by looking over somebody's shoulder, and you know the teacher will not find you out. What would you do at that point? Well, a lot of you may say, well, that's stupid. I keep the $100 and I cheat on the exam. But the point is that if you're an employer, what you want to have is somebody who has integrity, somebody who will tell the truth, somebody who will not put their fingers in the till, somebody who will be absolutely one that they can count on 100% of the time. So when I recruited a football player, I wanted to know what his height, weight, speed was. I wanted to know about his skill level. I wanted to know whether he could tackle or block or catch or throw. Those things were important. But once they had that certain basic level of skill in height, weight, speed, the most important thing about that person was character. Because if I recruited a guy who had bad character, a guy who wouldn't tell the truth, a guy who did not have a good work ethic, a guy who would not sacrifice for other people, that guy would probably be more destructive than he would be helpful. So whether it was recruiting football players, hiring people in a congressional office, hiring people to work in the athletic department, character was a big deal. Now the important thing to remember is this. Character is essentially a choice. You're born with certain color of hair, eyes, certain ability to grow to a certain height. You can't do much to change your height, right? And so there's a lot of things about you that are inherent. But one thing that you can change, one thing that you can determine is your character. So if you choose to tell the truth consistently, day in, day out, you'll have lots of opportunities to either tell the truth or not. It's going to shape your character. That will become part of you. Either you're somebody who's dishonest or you're somebody who's honest. And it's a choice. And so what I would advise you to do, in addition to getting all the education you can get, is to think about what kind of a person you are. And put yourself in that employer's shoes. Are you the kind of person they would want to hire? Can they trust you? Can they count on you to do the things that you have to do? So anyway, that's another thing that I would suggest would be something that would be important to you to think about over the next 2 or 3 years. So enough from me. I just wanted to let you know this. I dealt with a lot of young people over the years, coached about 2,000 players. And out of those 2,000, there has never been one player who ever told me, you know, Coach, he said, I really wish I hadn't spent all that time in school. I wish I didn't have a degree. There's never been one guy that ever told me that they wished they hadn't got an education. But I have had a very large number who said, you know, the biggest mistake I ever made was not finishing. I was here 4 years. I had a chance. It was right there for me, but I didn't finish. And so the thing that I have found over time, that most people will never regret having an education, having as much education as they possibly can achieve. But on the other hand, most people will look back on their life, and if there was an opportunity to have more education and they didn't attain it, they didn't achieve it, they will have a time of regret. And so don't be somebody that looks back on your life with regrets. Be somebody who looks back on your life and saying, I did it the way I should have. If I had it to do over again, I wouldn't do anything different. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. I want to wish you well, and I hope you continue with your education and do some great things with your life. Thank you.